getting closer, going faster than a roller coaster. Love like yours will surely come my way. Hey, hey, hey. Love like yours will surely come my way.
Like, what other show puts their characters through the ringer this much? I mean, it's crazy, but yeah, I think, you know, at the end of this season, you know, this family is together, but they're fractured. Absolutely. You know, the cracks are still there. You know, they are united and about to face this, you know, this storm ahead. But yeah, they're in no ways completely healed from it.
Do you ever feel as if everything's pointing you towards something? Space, time, history. I am grateful for every day we have.
Whatever tomorrow brings. It is a blessing you came to me. Colonel Fraser, time has come for you to fulfill your oath. Do not disappoint me. If there is a war, it would be safer in your time.
You want to go back, don't you? Our family is here.
You are my family.
If I am to keep people safe here, I need to know what's causing their illnesses.
Isn't this playing God?
I swore an oath to the crown, but I will not stand by and watch my kin killed.
People consider this to be the spark of the American Revolution. If we stop this fight now, America will never become America.
Promise, Jamie. Promise me you're coming back.
We can't say what might befall us. Just as you give me your word, I give you mine. Stand by my hand.
What kind of world is this?
The only world.
No, it isn't.
Welcome to PaleyFest LA. Hi, I'm Kate Hahn from TV Guide Magazine and TV Insider, and I'm delighted to be your host for this very special PaleyFest conversation honoring Outlander. And thanks to the festival's official card, City, for helping to make this event possible. This program is presented by the Paley Center for Media, a nonprofit organization dedicated to honoring excellence in television through education programs, great conversations with stars and storytellers of critically acclaimed series like the one we celebrate today, and the preservation of television's creative legacy at the Paley Archive. To learn more and to become a member, please visit paleycenter.org. Thank you. And today we are thrilled to welcome the members of the gifted cast and creative team of Starz and Sony Pictures Television's acclaimed series Outlander. Joining us are Diana Gabaldon, Matt Roberts, Meryl Davis, Richard Rankin, Sophie Skelton, Sam Hune, and Katrina Balfe. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much.
We all felt we had to wave there, right?
You can wave anytime. The first question is on behalf of PaleyFest sponsor, City, and they would love to know. The show has an incredibly dedicated fan base. What are some things that make the show's fans connect so passionately with it? And I'd love to start with Kat and Sam on this because you've been the core characters since season 1. So what is your take on that? Kat, do you want to start?
Well, I mean, first of all, Diana created this incredible world and these incredible characters. And I think we were so lucky that there was already such a huge fan base built in because of that. And I think what we've built upon and tried to go forward with is that it's just this incredible love story at the center of this world. It breaks out into all these other amazing things, you know, it's got so much action and drama, and I just think it sort of has something for everybody, but at the heart of it is this incredible aspirational love story.
Yeah, I think Katrina obviously has absolutely answered that question. I mean, it's all down to the woman that's below me right now somehow in this strange Zoom world. But we can cut that out. But yeah, Gabaldon, you know, fantastic, you know, world, and you know, we've obviously, you know, tried to stick as close as we can to her books, and it never stands still. You know, we've gone from Scotland, you know, in the 1700s with the Jacobite Revolution. We found ourselves in Versailles and the Caribbean, and then in America. Now we're dealing with, you know, the Revolutionary War and the sort of the beginnings of modern America. So it really does, it, as Katrina says, it spans over many different genres. But at the heart of it is this great love story, and not only Jamie and Claire, but the other characters involved as well.
Right. I'm curious. You know, Bree and Roger came in later. So Sophie and Richard, what is your take? What has the fan reaction been? Do you communicate with fans? Why do you think they're so passionate about the show? Sophie, we can start with you.
Yeah, again, I mean, absolutely building on what Sam and Katrina said in terms of just the base of the show, given that you've got the history element in there, you've got the drama element, this beautiful love story, there's just so much in there for everyone. But I do think giving a different relationship in there too has helped, because I think Jamie and Claire have this beautiful, idealistic love story. Obviously they have their moments like any relationship, but I think Roger and Brianna have given a very different relationship for people to look at, which I think in some ways is almost, in some ways, a more realistic one, in that they're not great at communicating. They have their moments, they have their arguments, and sometimes their arguments really pull them apart. But I think that has brought maybe a new generation of fans in, and also just gives people two completely different relationships to root for. So yeah, you have this beautiful idealistic romance, and then you have maybe what some people would see as a slightly more relatable, realistic one. And actually there's just a bit in there, like they said, a bit for everyone, and just kind of all different scenarios and all different ways of dealing with relationships or anything is in there. And I think also with all the characters, I think one thing that Diana did beautifully and that the writers keep doing beautifully is that the characters aren't perfect. And it's so easy in TV shows and film to just see these almost heroic characters all the way through, but actually all of the characters have their flaws and have their moments. And I think that just makes it all more relatable too. And people just really connect with that.
Richard, do you have anything to add to that?
No.
Richard's too busy boozing.
I am absolutely. I think everything that the guys have just said, all of that is great. No, I mean, the show was already like full steam ahead when I feel anyway when Sophie and I joined. So it was kind of like we just kind of jumped on board, and it was great, and it was an amazing experience. And I think I sort of got swept up by that, and you know, it already had such an amazingly passionate, loyal fan base when we came on. And the great thing about the show is it's always kind of evolving, it's always moving, it's always tackling difficult subjects, and you know, there's always, you know, new relationships being forged, and the story's constantly, like touching on what Sam said, I think one of the things that I really love most about Outlander is how it's constantly changing scene, how we can go from the Highlands of Scotland to, you know, high society Paris, to the Caribbean, to where we are now, which is just preceding the American Revolution. And I think that just constantly keeps it fresh, so it constantly feels like it's moving, and never really gets stale because of that. So yeah, I think our fan base have always really been behind us because of those reasons, really. And Sophie and I only came on and really made it worse, to be honest.
Yeah. These guys did all the hard work, and we just popped in and rode on the coattails. So thanks everyone.
Diana, when you created these two couples, these pairs of couples, were you thinking what the actors have just said, that you wanted to create this contrast between these two couples?
Oh, no. See, I don't actually create characters. I kind of find them, and then we add layers as they come along. You know, some characters like Jamie and Claire, I understand them immediately, but they get kind of more pungent and rich as we work together. Me in the book, that is, and the actors that take it on to another layer or two or three. No, Brianna and Roger sort of came about. Well, Roger came about accidentally because I needed somebody to go back in history and find something for Claire, and then we had Brianna because Claire was pregnant. Yeah.
You're just an accident.
You're saying that it was an accident.
She was, yes, really. No, but she existed only because Claire was pregnant at the end. So it took me a little while to figure her out, to find out who she was. She's what I call a hard nut, people that I just have to live with for a while, and they sort of beat on them, and eventually they crack open and show you themselves, which she did. But because of this sort of gradual discovery of their characters, they came to life somewhat differently. And also they are part of Jamie and Claire's relationship as well, because Brianna, of course, grew up with Claire being married to another man who she's always called her father. So she's naturally going to be kind of ambivalent when she meets Jamie Fraser and when she hears about him, saying, "That's not my father. I have a perfectly good father. What are you talking about?" So that kind of relationship. A girl's relationship with her father is going to affect her marriage, her choice of mate, how she gets along with said mate. And Brianna's had a much different background than Claire did. And so her marriage is going to be different too, regardless of who she marries. As it is, luckily she got a nice patient guy. But it's that they just develop that way. It's not that I, lay them out on the ground and go Shazam, rise up and act. They're just there.
Okay. Well, Matt, speaking of what's gone on in the past season, we started with this wonderful wedding. Everyone was very happy, but of course it's Outlander, so things typically began to fracture or fall apart. What was the overall arc or theme of this season for you when you were writing it?
Well, it's kind of, we always start with the books, and we try to find the main theme in the book. And Fiery Cross is a very big book. Thank you, Diana. There's a lot of great scenes. There's a lot of great things that happen throughout the book. But the one thing that kind of came off of season 4 was that building of a home, and then to kind of condense the book down into 12 episodes, we thought, what would this family do that just created this home? What lengths would they go to protect it, protect their family, protect their the ones they love? And that seemed to be the thing that kind of surfaced when we first started breaking the book. And that's how we kind of mapped out the season. And what was so great about it is the scenes from the book kind of just, dropped right into place throughout those 12 episodes. So it was, it worked out really nicely for us, because there's so many dynamic scenes that we could draw from that show, conflict and strife and, pain and suffering, people, the things that the fans of Outlander come for, as well as the love story. And I think that's what binds it all together, the love stories now.
You did a fantastic job lining it up as well. Yeah, the writers and you, and naturally the actors as well. But season 5 was just terrific.
Thank you.
It was a spectacular season, and part of that too was a lot of the production, a lot of the settings we saw. So Meryl, I'm curious about, maybe you could talk about how you keep the show fresh looking. We've heard from the actors about how you're constantly changing locations, you're getting a new look for the show. How do you keep it exciting in that way?
Well, I mean, I think every oh, sorry, Sam, were you going to pop in?
No, I was just going to say, you're going to recast each season, basically.
Exactly. Well, Jamie and Claire are getting a little long in the tooth, but they look so young. I mean, every year, honestly, and I think Richard kind of touched on this already, but this is a traveling show. Every year is something different. Every book brings something unique to the table, and it's a challenge every year. And I think it keeps both the fans on their toes, but it also keeps us on our toes, and our crew. And I think it's one of the reasons we've retained so much of our crew as we've come forward. We are a family at the heart of the show, but it's also exciting. It's exciting to be on the show because there's something new every year. And the same thing for our production team. Gary Steele is spectacular at every year creating something that just kind of tops itself. And with the big house, we started last year. It kind of came into its own this year, and it is literally a big house, but it's spectacular. And everything, Brownsville, everything he creates with his team is just kind of pushes forward what we've already created and kind of tops it. And I feel like we've continued to do that every year, both with the material and also the surroundings, as well as Trisha Bigger. We have a new costume designer this year, and I think she stepped into some very big shoes this year with Terry having left, and she's really kind of created her own mood. She's kind of taken up the mantle where Terry left, and you know, the look is different but the same. And I just think every year we just keep topping ourselves, and you know, we keep saying, oh, last year was the toughest year, oh, senior was the toughest year, and every year it becomes, oh, this is going to be the toughest year. And we keep thinking, oh, because we're in America now, it's going to be easier, but it just keeps getting harder. But I think that's what makes us all love it and want to come to work every day and strive to do our best, both for ourselves, but also for the fans who are expecting that.
Well, one of those new spectacular sets is Claire's surgery. So Kat, I wanted to ask you, what's it like working in that surgery, and what did you have to learn about medicine this season that was new?
Well, apparently penicillin looks like a paintbrush. No, I love that set, and it's incredible. You know, we sort of are very lucky that we get to do like a little walkthrough beforehand, and it's amazing to have the conversations with our awesome prop team as well, where you're going through, and it's, you know, I'm a little OCD, and you know, it's sort of like, well, I think Claire would have these things set up this way, and you know, it's really fun that you get to sort of create this little world for Claire. And especially when we were doing all the penicillin stuff, it's like, well, how do you think she would arrange all of this? And it's beautiful, and it just helps you so much as an actor when you have such a rich environment to step into that feels so real. And you know, you open up any drawer and there's an instrument, or there's a piece of, you know, Claire's either note taking or something like that. And it's just those little details that are so vital, I think, to giving you just such a rich tapestry to work with. And, you know, we also have an incredible medical advisor, our real Dr. Claire. And, you know, she's been with us from the very beginning, and she's been amazing. And, you know, when we had to do the tonsillectomy, she was incredible about, you know, walking me through all of that. And, you know, when it was the appendectomy and doing the autopsy and stuff like that, walking through all of those things, it's just fascinating. And it's also because, you know, it's make-believe. It doesn't really, you know, it's fun. You can poke around and pretend you're doing things, but, you know, you're not actually going to kill somebody. So it's good.
Well, you guys also mentioned that there are, and Matt said this, there are so many moments of high stakes and drama. And one of those was when Sam, your character, Jamie, was bitten by a snake. So tell us what it was like to shoot that scene. You're out there with Roger, who's not a very experienced frontiersman at that point, camping. What was it like to shoot that kind of snake bite scene? And both of you guys can talk about this.
Yeah, I mean, you know, so coming off the back of probably one of the strongest storylines I think Jamie's had, which, you know, possibly wasn't in Diana's books, but it's definitely part of her world. One of the times we detoured from that, but I think was a really rewarding for myself, and I think for fans as well. It was the death of Jamie's godfather, Murta, and I think, you know, so for me that was a really big moment, and I think for Jamie it was a huge moment, and actually for the whole family, the repercussions are felt, you know, for many episodes afterwards. And so the snake bite came out of you know, here we are now, it's Outlander, and then there's another challenge. You know, here's a really strong moment where Jamie has to confront his own mortality. And just going back to what Katrina said about you know, the people that work in the background, you know, so we worked with the makeup department, and the makeup department is equally as sort of in depth and hardworking as the other departments. And, you know, we have all these amazing surgeries or grotesque prosthetics that we have to wear and use, and just to be part of that conversation, you know, to talk about, you know, what does it look like, what happens to your body when you get bitten by a snake, what happens to the wound, and we had these really amazing prosthetics that we used throughout that story. But yeah, and then Jamie finds himself, you know, in the forest with the man that he thinks is probably not worthy of being his daughter's husband, a man that he thinks is not suited to this world in this time period. And he's confronted with that, and actually surprised by Roger's fortitude and Roger's his own unique way of looking at the world.
Well, tell us about Murta. I do want to talk about that. You know, tell us about what it was like to shoot that scene where he actually loses him, where Jamie loses his godfather.
Yeah, I mean, so it was it's kind of hard to really put it into words, really. You know, we have this amazing actor in Duncan McQuarrie who he's just been a really strong part of the storyline. Murta, the character, has obviously always been there for Jamie. He's been this silent guardian, this father figure. But Duncan as an actor has been probably our best friend and chief entertainer on set, and you know, the man who'll probably be also drinking the most whiskey when we're doing one of these. But he really is a lot of fun, but also a really, really incredible actor. And to lose him that day was, you know, it was quite traumatic for Jamie. And so then, yeah, there was this journey of Jamie coming to terms with, you know, through grief. So it's, you know, first of all, it's shock, and then there's anger, and there's, you know, all these stages of grief. And then basically we get to the tent, and Claire cannot help him, and he realizes that he's lost his godfather. And yeah, it was just some really great writing, to be honest, you know, because then Jamie is confronted with Governor Tryon, and out comes Jamie's emotion, Jamie's grief. And it was interesting. We actually had to go back and shoot some of that stuff there, which again, you know, is an acting challenge, I think. But you know, we have great writing, we have great directors, and you know, and a great supporting cast as well. Not Roger, the guy that plays Roger's rubbish.
I completely.
Wow.
Sophie, I wanted to talk about Bree's journey a bit, because she has quite the season, and she finally, I mean, would you say with what happens with Stephen Bonnet that she overcomes what happened to her with him? Tell us a little bit about her journey this season and how she copes with that trauma.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think even in the end of this season, you know, you can put a bullet in the man, but you can't put a bullet in what happened. And I think obviously Brianna spends the season trying to overcome it and trying to be happy and almost put it to one side, but it is a trauma that will be with her for the rest of her life. But I do think it's something that she has managed to, in that very Fraser-like strong way, she's managed to squash it in terms of an outward showing of her grief, I suppose. And it's definitely something that haunts her. I think Jemmy has been a very welcome distraction. She's been able to put all of her energy into taking care of a child as opposed to sort of dwelling with her own demons. And I think that's one thing we sort of played on this season, where it's almost like Brianna can't sleep, which I suppose in a way is good because, you know, Jemmy doesn't sleep. And I think sleeping is when her demons seep back in. So I definitely think that she's had to put her own healing in a way aside and just put all of her focus on Jemmy. But obviously, you know, we see when we have the wedding in the first episode, we see initially quite a nervous Brianna. I don't think it's quite how she would have envisaged her wedding. I think obviously Frank's not there, which is just an added piece of trauma. She lost her father quite young. But also getting married in the 17th century in front of this whole clan of people from the rich who she doesn't really know is quite a nerve-wracking show, I think. So initially, it's not quite how she would do it. She'd probably just elope in the 70s and have quite a relaxed, fun wedding with her close family and friends. But yeah, we pick up with her quite nervous. And then obviously we see this very happy, relaxed Bree, she and Roger dancing, her talking with her mum, with her father, looking after Jemmy, doing the mashed potato and all of that. And then all of a sudden, yeah, hearing Bonnet, hearing that he's alive, it all just comes crumbling down again. And that is just something that really, in a way, brings the trauma back. Not that it particularly went anywhere, but knowing that he's alive just poses more of an imminent danger as much as a reminder of what happened. Because then obviously it's that mama bear mode, and her son is then in imminent danger, knowing that Bonnet is lurking around, especially given the fact that he gave her the gem in season 4. We know that he potentially has some interest in getting to know Jemmy or harming Jemmy or whatever. And obviously, when you've gone through a trauma, then any reminder of it, it's always going to be the worst case scenario. So the worst case scenario that would come to Bree's mind is that Bonnet would want to take her child or harm her family again. So it's really something that she then carries with her, obviously on a deeper level, that's a given, but then on a more surface level throughout the season. You know, even when she sees that Jemmy's gone missing, and she just automatically, her mind goes to that worst case scenario. And so it is only when we get to episode 10 where she finally has somewhat of a form of closure. Obviously, like I say, the trauma's never gone, but at least now she knows that the man and the imminent danger is gone, and she can just, for all intents and purposes, live her life. Obviously, I'm sure there's moments where it'll seep in again, but there is some element of healing there, knowing that man has had some justice done.
Exactly. And I want to talk about the way trauma was handled this season in the writing and the shooting. And Matt, if you could speak to that, there were a couple of very experimental filmic styles that we haven't seen in Outlander before. And I'm thinking of Roger's hanging, and then in the finale where Claire experiences a severe trauma and we sort of are transported to another time. How did you make the decision to handle Outlander visually differently than we'd seen before to handle these traumatic scenes?
Well, you know, we started the season early on knowing that one of the big challenges for us in the writing room is the books, is that you're in the characters' heads. And I think that's one of the things the fans get used to. Reading these books, you get into the characters' heads, you know their thoughts, you know what they're thinking in any given moment, because Diana writes them. And we've run out of voiceover. It's hard to just have, as Kat and Sam can probably attest to, early on in filming in season 1, we would stop. We would, you know, Margaret, our script supervisor, would hit the clock for 45 seconds and everybody would stand there and we'd go, okay, that's where the voiceover goes. And we realized that you just can't do that over and over and over again, because that is some of the great internal dialogue from the book we wanted to get out. So we've always kind of struggled with that. It's always been a challenge. And so this season we thought, how can we get into their heads visually? And these were the two episodes, episode 8 and episode 12, where we thought we could visualize it, and we needed to kind of step out of ourselves a little bit, but do justice to the story as well. So getting into Roger's head in that silent picture mode gave it a different visual than just showing a flashback. And you know, it took us a long time in editing to really put that together and structure it well. What we do is we tend to kind of overwrite that stuff. So when you read a script, you might go, wow, that's a lot of stuff. But we know that we're going to, in post, just come down and cut it down to its bare essentials, because that's all you need to tell the story. Our fans are very astute. They get the point, they get things, and they can fill, you know, certainly the book readers fill in the gaps with what they've already read. And that's a luxury. It's both a gift and a curse for us, you know, because sometimes we don't have to tell everything visually and they fill in the gap. And then other times they're like, hey, where's the gap that I wanted to see that I've been waiting 20 years for? So it's a juggling. We juggle with that all the time. But those two elements were picked out early in the season, you know, early in the writing. And we decided, let's see how this works. Now with episode 8, we actually filmed both ways. We had the studio and network were a little concerned that the silent picture wouldn't reveal itself the way they couldn't get their head around it on the page. And we thought we could get our heads around it. So we filmed it both ways, and we asked the actors to do it both ways. And that was, challenging for them to both play a regular flashback and then go into silent picture mode. So we had to double up with the filming of it. So, kudos to them. They really stepped up and dug into that. I think Richard in that episode is, phenomenal. He played both sides of that, both the silent picture part, and then he goes in, I don't know how many times you were hanged, Richard, but it feels like about 1,000.
He's still in silent picture mode.
Yeah. And we only really had to do a couple, but we just had so much fun kicking the barrel over and hanging him over and over again. So we just kept doing it. So.
Now, how was that scene to shoot, Richard?
Oh, I didn't do it. It was stuntman that did it. That's not fair. No, that's not true.
You're not supposed to tell people that.
No, I jest. There was a lot surrounding the hanging. Both on location and in the studio. There were many elements to it, and I think, like Matt was saying, the difficulty of editing that together, because they had so much content in how they would tell that story and how they would sort of get that sort of the impression of being inside Roger's head and having the story told from really quite a difficult perspective, I think, especially when you're working with kind of a mediocre actor to really convey that. But no, we were in the studio, and I remember particularly one of the hardest things to shoot, I think all season, was they had this special lens. Maybe Matt can remember the name of it. There's a really, really long, sort of narrow lens. It was like, it felt like it was about 8 foot long coming out of this camera and into the sack, which was, you know, obviously covering my face. And we shot that in the studio, which was just prior to being hung, so just before the barrel was kicked away, and we shot that a lot. And that was quite difficult to shoot, and that was really quite, and trying to tell that story from in a really, really confined space with this, you know, lens literally about, you know, maybe 5 centimeters away from your eyeballs. That was quite tricky. So there were many elements of it shot, and it was all very difficult. And you do have to be kind of in that really tense sort of, I suppose, well, edge of the barrel moment of, you know, just about to be hung and everything that comes with that. So I think they did an amazing job. I think the director, Stephen Wolfenden, and I think the way that he shot it and the way he went about it and how everyone stuck to that visual of the silent movie thing, because I loved that from the start. But it's risky, it's bold. But I think you need to be that way in television, don't you, to have more sort of, it's more exciting that way. And I think that everyone really did a really, really great job assembling that, because it wasn't easy and it was risky. But yeah.
Well, another very bold choice was the scene with Kat, and you know your kidnapping and attack by these men who had kidnapped you, and you know, Claire's disassociating by flashing to this imaginary 1960s Thanksgiving. Did you shoot the Thanksgiving scenes first so that you would be able to visualize those while you were shooting the later scenes of the attack? How did that work?
God, I'm trying to remember which went first. I think
we filmed a little chunk of you know, after the abduction, and then we went in for like a week and a half, remember, in the modern house.
Yeah. So that was, but then I think the actual night shoots that we did maybe was after that. Yeah.
At the end, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, that was, again, it was a really great script, and, you know, I think it took time for everyone to sort of understand and to sort of arrive on the same page. But we had, you know, a really strong script, and Jamie Payne, our director, was incredible, and he had a really, I mean, I know he was talking with Matt all the time, and he had a really strong visual sort of plan mapped out, and, you know, he talked a lot about different artists and this sort of surrealist photographer Gregory Crewdson and different things like this, and it was just getting it all to sort of fit, I think, was the challenge. But it was really, you know, it was amazing by the end of the season that everyone was trying so hard to do something that was going to be visually very different and stylistically very different. And, you know, and it was important that you're taking, you know, Claire, which is all of our beloved character, and you're, you know, she's going through something so harrowing, and it was trying to find, you know, what happens to a woman like that who is so strong and so resourceful and has been through so much in her life, but yet enduring this is brought to almost breaking point. And it was a great challenge for me, and I think it was a great challenge for the entire crew and everyone else in that episode. And I think, you know, it all those risks sort of paid off, and it ended up being quite beautiful. But I think it was a great idea that, you know, when Matt came and talked to us about using this dissociative state, I thought that was really a powerful thing to try and explore. And it was just about finding sort of the right ways of doing it. And I think, yeah, we sort of got there in the end.
When you say it was challenging for you in any particular way?
Well, just as an actor, you know, anyone who's gone through subject matter like that, it's always difficult. You want, you know, it's really hard to address these subjects and feel that you're on the right path, and you know, you're always trying to toe the line between being responsible and not bringing anything that's overly gratuitous, or trying to show too much, with also being very true to the situation and trying to respect the subject matter. And just, you know, the surrealism element of it, I thought, was really interesting. And it was for me, you know, and I think with Matt and Tony, we sort of had gone back and forth with this, and it was sort of, I wanted to make sure that when we were in these disassociative states that we were always in Claire's mind. And so it was from Claire's perspective. And, you know, I didn't want her to be talking too much. And, you know, I think that was the thing about all of us finding what felt right for all of us, about what that would look like. I mean, how do you show what Claire is sort of experiencing in her head? But I think, you know, it was an amazing team effort, and I think we all found a really good way of doing it in the end.
Well, and when she comes home to Fraser's Ridge, and I believe the last line of the season is safe, which is her answer to Jamie about how she feels. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, Sam, what is Jamie's responsibility to Claire after this trauma that she's been through? What is he thinking about their relationship and what he needs to do for her?
Yeah, I mean, just like thinking about what's happened this season to all these characters. And Jamie, you know, having been through trauma himself, kind of understands, he knows he needs to be there for her, he needs to support her, but he also can't, he also has to respond to what Claire needs. I think it was interesting, we talked a lot about, you know, physical touch and when he can actually feel like he can touch her. And I think, you know, we focus in on that in the last scene on, you know, Jamie and Claire holding hands. And it's so interesting that all these characters have been through so much trauma, not only this season, but over all the seasons. And yeah, they have each other, but ultimately they're about to probably face even bigger challenges in subsequent seasons when Matt starts writing them. He's already written them.
Matt's probably at work already. Well, I mean, you know, Richard, your character, Roger, probably, I think he might have had the biggest arc as far as changing from one sort of person into another. You know, he's killed by the end of the season. And at the beginning, he just wanted to go back to the 20th century and be a professor. So what's a key moment for you in his development in season 5 that really changed him?
I don't know if there's a key moment in Roger and what changes him, or if it's an accumulation of things. I mean, ever since he came back to the 18th century, it's just kind of been one hurdle after another, and really his sort of primary objective was just to help Brianna with whatever it was that she wanted to do. Obviously, you know, with Claire and Jamie, and get back to their time to you know, to safety. So I think it was just a kind of a build-up of everything right from the word go, from the Gloriana onwards. But I suppose if you were to define a kind of catalyst, it would be the hanging. I mean, that just kind of brings everything together for Roger, I think. And after that, I think what episode 8 for me was he was kind of trying to find himself. He was on a journey of kind of rediscovery. He was trying to get back to what he was before the hanging, and coming to the realization that he's never going to be the same person again. He is a changed man. And I think that's what's so great about the way the scene that was written with Brianna, where he says, you know, you're just going to have to accept the fact that I'm no longer that person. I'm no longer the Roger that everyone loved so much and misses so dearly, I'm sure. But actually, I'm changed from within, and I can't find that in me again. So I have to embrace the fact that it wasn't about healing. It was just, well, it was, but it's more about embracing the change that he's been through and the fact that he is coming out of the end of it a different man. And yeah, so I suppose that's the sort of the biggest catalyst for him. But I think that's an accumulation of everything that he's gone through to bring him to that point, to say, this is how this time's changed me. This is how I'm a different man. I still love you very much, and I hope that's reciprocated. But I'm not going to be I'm not going to be exactly the same guy that you fell in love with. And I think that all I think that's encapsulated really nicely in that scene where he says as much to Brianna. Well,
Sophie, you know, they did discover when they tried to go through the stones and when they thought of home, that their home was on Fraser's Ridge. So has she now accepted that they are staying in this time? And, you know, she now is sort of comforting her mother in a way. So looking forward, what does she want going into season 6? What does Brie want?
I think for Brianna being in that time period, she almost felt a bit of a kind of juxtaposition within herself, in that she very much is a modern woman for that time, and in that element, being an engineer in the 60s, 70s, she very much belongs in a modern time period. But then, yeah, she's never really had a full family. As I said before, her father died when he was younger. Claire and Brianna had a very strange relationship. Claire was working as a surgeon, which again is one of those relatable things we're talking about before. You know, a lot of women who don't get the time with their children that they would want, and we get to see how that knock-on effect happens and their relationship's estranged, and she'd never met her real father. So for Bree, suddenly she has this family, and even though brutal things have happened to her in this time period, it does almost then seem weird that she in a way seems almost safer there in some respects, because her family are there. And obviously now that she has Jemmy, she wants a family that she never had for her child too. And, you know, again, just touching on what Katrina and Sam were saying before, the Frasers now have all experienced some form of sexual abuse and trauma. And I think it's one thing that I know sometimes people say, oh, with Outlander, there's a lot of rape and there's a lot of XYZ in terms of those things. And although obviously everybody is extremely sensitive to that, it's something that Diana put in the books because it did happen a lot, unfortunately, in those time periods. And I think what Diana and the writers have done incredibly is to show that, as you were talking with the dissociation and everything else, is that each of these traumas, the characters deal with them differently and they experience them differently. You know, with Brianna, I had her go through something called tonic immobility, which is where your body essentially just goes completely numb. And they say that some people who experience rape in that way then have almost worse PTSD because they don't feel it at the time and they start to feel it later and later. So I think while we have all of these characters going through traumas and they all have immense empathy because they understand what the others are going through. And even though Claire might not want to talk about it all the time, and she's so bold and brave and she can say that she's going to be okay and she's trying to convince herself of that, Brianna knows exactly what she's going through. And we see that in that moment where Brianna sees Claire come off the cart. Because I think one thing that it's easy to overlook in that moment is that Brie doesn't actually know what's happened to Claire. No one's told her, but you can just, it's that almost sixth sense mother-daughter thing. They've come so close now and so far, and their relationship of mother and daughter kind of oscillates sometimes. And in that moment, it's like Brie's the mother to Claire, and she knows that it probably broke Claire's heart the first time that Brie was going to go home. And now I think Brie stays there for herself and for her family. I think she knows that her mother's going to move her around for a while, even if she doesn't want to talk about her trauma. But for Brie, I think there's probably a bit of a relief that Roger thinking of home meant that that was home too, because I think she felt very guilty keeping him there. But now that they're both on the same page, I think she'll start to be a lot more settled version of herself, I think, and yeah, just be there for her family.
Well, Matt, with all of this set up, with this family bonded together through love and through trauma, and facing this storm of the Revolutionary War, and also Claire having learned that there are more people traveling through time, what can you hint about what we might see in season 6 coming up?
Season 6, you know, we're gonna dig into the 6th book in the series, and I think one of the things that we always dig into is that the Frasers and the Mackenzies put themselves out there. The reasons why I think they are so affected by traumas and all the turmoil that goes on in the era is because they put themselves out there. They try to help people, and whether that's people coming to the Ridge or them going out and trying to stop something, whether it been Culloden or Alamance or whatever, they put themselves out there. They put themselves at risk, and inherently when you do that, you know, you have to suffer. You suffer, and in book 6 that happens again, and there's going to be joys, but you know, as Outlander, as Diana can speak to this, there is going to be drama, there's going to be suffering, there's going to be tears, all of the above, and we're going to try to pull out of, you know, all those really once again, they're always so dynamic. The story, where we get into problems, certainly in the writer's room, is we fight over what scenes we want. You know, like, oh my God, this one's great. How do we work this in to this episode or this episode or this episode? And sometimes that works to our advantage, where we can go, oh, they're not going to get it where they expect it, but it's going to come down here, and then it comes out of nowhere. And I think that's the fun of putting it all together, because it's very fun. Meryl has, you know, she has read all the books multiple times. She has her favorite scenes, and she'll say, "What about this one?" And we're like, "Well, maybe we can move it over here." And
I never get my way. I never get my way.
At first she doesn't get her way. It's just a way of, and then she gets her way later. That's the way life works. Because it's such a luxury to get, and such an amazing thing to have 6 seasons of any TV series nowadays. And so, you know, knock on wood that we get more, but you know, getting to book 6 was for me one of those things like, wow, this is such an amazing thing that we can tell this story. And it's Meryl's favorite book. I love so much in it, and I know that a lot of the fans that have read the book really like it too. So,
well, we do need to wrap up soon, but I would love to go around and hear from everybody just quickly. What are you most excited about for getting back to shooting season 6? And Meryl, because you love the book so much, let's start with you.
Why do I have to go first? I mean, it's hard to talk about the book without spoiling things. But I mean, you know, the original Outlander is obviously as well my favorite, but this is my second favorite, because I think there's, you know, it's hard when you get to the 6th book. You know, as Matt said, usually, you know, we've been on a lot of television series and we know the ups and downs, and you know, you don't usually make it this far, but you know, we're very lucky that we have so many of our original members with us. And you know, we started with a crew of like 6 people in the writers' room, and there's still 4 of us left. So it's crazy to me. And you know, I just love this book because I think there's so much for everyone in it. I mean, Jamie and Claire, you know, their love deepens. Roger and Brianna, you know, they have their own journey, and something fun and new happens with them. And you know, Caitlin, who plays Lizzie, has a great story, and she's such a phenomenal actress. There's just so many exciting things, and I think for all of us, we're just excited to get back to work, because as I said before, we are truly a family. We have our ups and downs, we fight, we bicker, but we laugh, and you know, I think we're all excited to see each other's faces again and get back to work and make this show that we all love.
Kat, what are you most excited about?
Ooh,
the food.
I'm just so excited to see all of our crew, and you know, I think we miss them all dearly, and it's really sad that everyone's, you know, not able to get up and go to work. And maybe I'll get a haircut this season. I don't know.
A lighter wig, maybe.
Maybe. We'll
very,
see.
very light.
I'll let Sam do it.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
Sam, what about you? What are you excited about for playing Jamie in season 6?
I mean, first I'm excited there'll be no more Zoom calls. We can all agree to that, right? But I mean, playing Jamie, I mean, yeah, to see where he goes with this season. But to be honest, also, yeah, we have now 6, almost 7 years of experience behind us, right? We have scenes, we have characters, we have things in the books we haven't covered. We've, you know, we can call back on stuff, and we've seen that there is time travelers out there as well. So yeah, it feels like the world, the universe is opening up a bit more, and for us to draw upon as well, you know, for the writers and production team. And as actors, we have all that experience and each other, you know, we know how each other works now, and we enjoy most of the time working with each other, and it's brilliant. I can't wait to go back to work, honestly.
Sophie, what about you?
Yeah, you know, as we were saying before, I feel like season 5, there's so much happened. It's almost like every episode was its own little movie. It was so fast paced. So it's exciting just to, yeah, go back and have so much more of that material. I feel like, thanks Diana, pretty much everything that could happen to a person, Brianna's pretty much been through. But I know that there's some even more stuff happening next season, and it's just, yeah, it'll be exciting to see what we've got, see what the writers do, because it's always amazing. And I have a feeling it's going to be another absolutely packed season. And yeah, seeing everyone's faces here, I'm just like, oh guys, miss you all. So it'll just be nice, yeah, to all be back together, see the crew and everyone. And we really are our own little family up in Scotland, so it'll be, yeah, good to get everyone back together, if you can all come into the country, that is. So
yeah,
like guys, you know.
Richard, is Roger ready for this Revolutionary War?
Oh, absolutely, yes. No, I couldn't be more ready for the Revolutionary War. Yeah. Thanks. I just can't wait to get out of the house, to be honest. I'm desperate to get back on set. I can't wait to get back on set. It'll be lovely. You know, infinite copious amounts of coffee, for example, seeing these guys again. And actually, I have no idea what happens in book 6 because I haven't read it. So I think this will be the first time that I go on not knowing anything.
4 months.
I know, but you know, I've been really busy with I've been really busy with other things, you know.
He likes to be surprised.
Huh? I'll be excited not to wear a wig and my cat.
Yes. Thank you for growing your hair out.
Yeah, you owe me, Matt.
I know.
That'll save on the budget, right?
Yes, he will. Exactly why he's growing it out.
I actually, you know,
Sam and I lost ours. It's getting. Sam and I
anyone
lost ours.
with this length, I feel for them. It's difficult having long hair. It's really, truly difficult. And it's
know.
It goes. I'm Meryl. You're the perfect example.
It's so hard. It's so hard.
I hate it. So bonus for me this season.
You look great. You look great.
You all look fabulous. Diana, I want to close with you since Richard hasn't read the book. What is the most exciting, like, what can you hint about this next book, and should Richard be worried or happy, or should he just pick that book up tonight?
Mm-hmm. You've got a long time to work on it between now and filming, so yeah, read it yourself. But no, all I can say is what Mark Twain said when people said, "How do you write your stories?" They said, "Oh, it's easy. I just chase the characters up a tree and throw rocks at them." That works really well. There's a big one coming your way. No, I'm looking forward, especially to just seeing the first dailies, because it's, you know, such a thrill to see, you know, what they've made of. I have the story, you know, in my head. I know what happened, but to see their take on it is fabulous. And yeah, sometimes I think, wow, so that's really cool, both in terms of the acting and the set and so forth, but particularly the acting, you know, because, you know, these guys are magic. They can do stuff that I would never ever have thought of.
No, they are. It's wonderful chemistry with this cast, and I love to hear that you're still surprised by things that you see, even in time. Well, hey, thank you all so much. Thanks for joining us for this special PaleyFest conversation with members of the wonderful cast and creative team of Outlander, and thanks to the festival's official card, City. You can learn more about the Paley Center by visiting paleycenter.org. Thank you and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.